Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Rock Show with Connor Farrell. Today, our guest for fans of Wolfpack, Theo Katzman from Wolfpack, and medium build, our guest is Grady Spencer. Cue intro. Okay, now that we're back from the intro, Grady, we're going to start off with some rapid-fire questions before delving deeper. Does that sound good?
Sounds great, man.
Okay, so Grady, what was one of the first bands, songwriters, anything like that you remember really getting you into music?
The main one was Jack Johnson, believe it or not, back in the day. Good acoustic surf music.
That's nice and wholesome. Okay, now, second follow-up. What's one song the people at home need to know from Jack Johnson?
Man, I would say Bubble Toast off his first album was pretty great.
Bubble Toast. Oh, my God.
Yep.
But I don't even know what that Bubble Toast is.
Yeah, you'll have to check it out, man. It was probably before your time, but it's really great stuff.
Why, was it 5 years ago? You know, I look like I'm 12.
Yeah, dude, it was a good 15, 20 years ago, so it was back there.
Man, okay, well then, now what's one artist you're just getting into for you that's like exciting you, that you're loving listening to?
There's a guy named McGee. It's like mk.gee, and he's this really incredible guitar player. Yeah, he's really great.
Okay, and then what's one song from McGee?
Probably Are You Looking Up? That's incredible.
Are you looking up? Ah. What
I'm kind of all over the place. Yeah, sorry, man. It's I like weird stuff.
Oh, you can't out-weird me. Come on, man. You're comfy.
Yeah.
Okay, well, so you're in Fort Worth, Texas, right?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Okay, so I read that on the Wikipedia. Now, the next thing I want to say is you describe yourself as groove-based rock. And I found that interesting, and I liked that. And so I'm curious if you could kind of tell everyone why groove was an important element for you to highlight.
Yeah, I think for me, it's how I write songs, and then the music that I like to present to people. I want people's heads to be bobbing, feet to be tapping, and so usually when I'm writing, I'll kind of syncopate. So like I'll find the syllables, and then it kind of hits the beat with the guitar, and then I'm kind of imagining the drums that my drummer's going to put later on. And so the groove, the lyrics are obviously very important with what I'm trying to communicate, but before anything, like how the song, beats and how it like grooves into people's ear holes is very important to how I create. And, it's just kind of how I like to do it.
Yeah. So do you ever start with do you start with a beat a lot of times before it moves on to like melodies and guitar parts, or how do you build up from a groove?
Yeah, 100%, man. I actually have a plug-in on my computer in Logic, which is a recording software, and it's just drum loops. And so I'll just kind of browse through different drum loops. If I find one that I'm like, oh, that's interesting, I'll drop it in, speed it up, slow it down, and then I'll start playing guitar and kind of scatting over that. And sometimes, a song will happen based purely on the drum beat, which is really fun and exciting for me. So,
yeah, could you, for the folks at home, what's that Logic plugin if we were curious on getting that?
It's sure. It's called Teletone Audio is the plugin maker, and there's one called Tempo, and then TYMPO, and then there's another one called he just came out with a new one. I can't remember what it's called, but if you just Google Teletone Audio drums, you'll see it. And really, really great drum sounds and really great loops so to write off of.
Fascinating. Well, let's stay on this topic of writing real quick. So it seems that the message of your music is very important to you. Is that the case?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I'm turning 40 this year, so I'm a pretty old man compared to a lot of people who are
Congrats.
at the stage. Thank you. But I have a wife, two small kids, and so my perspective on the world has kind of shifted from when I was a young man, and didn't really have any responsibilities, and so now it's a lot more positivity, more love songs, but now there's a lot more observational stuff with kind of how the world's going, and kind of viewing it through the perspective of a 40-year-old man with a family, and just trying to sort through kind of how the world is and how we're living and how the times are. So
Yeah, yeah. So I really liked when I read about, the love song component. So, since you're the expert, can you give us a how-to on how to write the perfect love song?
mm, yeah, so I would say, one, fall in love. That's step one. It's a lot more authentic when you're in it. I think some people just they think about what the ideal love looks like, or what it could look like, what they want it to look like. But I think until you're in it and like experiencing it firsthand, that's really important. Two is yeah, like real positive major chords, a lot of GCD type stuff. And then lyrically, hiding little nuggets that only you and the other person would know about is like a nice little touch. And, that usually will result in some tears and some hugs, and, yeah, and everybody just really liking the song. And then hopefully, yeah, you start communicating with the other person, and then if it's a good enough song and the communication is strong enough, then other people will want to listen to it and go stream it or whatever.
So you're saying if there aren't people crying, you didn't write a good enough love song.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, or at least if you're not crying, or the person you're writing the love song to is not crying, then it could be better. But the best ones usually, I'm like the last love song I wrote to my wife, I couldn't even play it for her in person. Like I just had to send her a recording, because I would have been bawling my eyes out, because it was lyrically talking about our relationship from the get go. So
Man, you are the master at that then. Yeah, you got tears everywhere. Okay,
trying,
so
yeah.
outside of love songs, you were saying positivity and observational kind of material. So when you think positivity, you pick that emotion, you got that mindset, and you want to put out that message. When you go to then think about lyrics, do you pick like a positive topic, or how does that turn into something you're able to work with?
Um, Sometimes, yeah, it's not usually explicitly a positive topic, but what I do like to do is not hold back on what I'm feeling, um, and being very open with my anxieties, my stressors, my whatever, and kind of putting it in a positive light, so that when somebody hears it, if somebody's going through that same thing, there's a connection. And those are usually the people who come up to the merch table after a show, and it's like, hey, that one song that it's not that popular with everybody else, I really connected with it because I was going through the same anxieties, the same stressors. And so when I say positivity, it might be a heavy topic, but it's the positive thinking, in that I'm communicating that I understand there's other people out there going through these things and having these same feelings that I'm having, and to kind of communicate the positive nature is that we're not alone in that. I think sometimes this world can be pretty isolating, and so I try to write songs that are going to help people connect with me and the listener, but also listeners that can talk about stuff. And I've got a song called "Therapy Is Good," and that's pretty on the nose about mental health, going and getting help, talking, going to therapy. And my goal was that, like, to destigmatize talking about therapy and making it this weird unspoken thing, and like maybe fans of the music can talk to each other about how they go to therapy, how it impacts them, and how helpful it can be, because it definitely was super helpful for me. So
Yes, that's great. Yeah, you know, instead of starting with positivity, you're kind of maybe more looking at with every topic you kind of approach, finding the positivity, finding the community, finding those connections that kind of inspire hope. Because I think people are really despondent, or I think there's a tendency to be despondent and to be depressive. And I like you know like the sounds and the style and the realness of like rock and punk and metal and all of these things, but I can't stand the negativity and all of these kinds of things. And so I make a real point when I'm writing stuff and I'm working on stuff for the next year in terms of music, that I'm like, I I don't know what I got to sing about or what I want to sing about, and that's all great. But I want it to be positive. I want hope. I want to like I want people to get hope from my music, and uh, and I think that's kind of the music that I wish someone was making for me. You know?
100%. Yeah. I think, yeah, if it could bleed into the harder genres, because I enjoy harder music as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, lyrically, I need it. I need it to be bringing people together and not dividing people. That's kind of where I'm at these days. Of like, as I get older, it's becoming very clear that we're not all here permanently, and so that we need to really be making these human connections, because we're all here on Earth at the same time. So we might as well make the most of it and get along with as many people as we can. And there's always going to be outliers, but generally speaking, I think we all should be like trying to figure out how to make things work than just putting wedges in between everybody. So
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And people say like social media, all these kinds of things are, they play off of what gets you angry, all these negative emotions, and that's how they're able to get your attention, right? And I think maybe you're able to get attention through negativity, but you don't build love and community and friendship and things that people feel good about. I'd rather be something that people don't go, I got to cut that out of my life, like a cigarette or something like that, where
sure.
people see it. And I think that's how people see social media, and they see these things. And I think, maybe you can hook someone in with something maybe that goes, a little inflammatory, like, oh, like Wolfpack is better than Jack Johnson. I don't like Jack Johnson. They go, and they get a little bit of outrage and they click it. But then you go, I'm just kidding. I love Jack Johnson, but I really wanted to show you this cool Wolfpack. So I'm trying to think. I'm like, maybe it's like with a dog when you got medicine and you
Yep.
slip it in.
It's so funny, like everything you're talking about. And I'll send. I'm not sure when
Yeah.
this podcast will come out, but we've got a single that's coming out sometime in the
Oh,
next few weeks, and it's called "The River," and it's exactly what you're talking about. Of
river.
like, we're all in this together, and it seems like there's things in place to try to like get people fired up and point
Yeah.
fingers at each other and get mad at each other. But in the end of the day, it's like no matter what anybody believes, we're all human beings, and I can guarantee you I can find
Yeah.
parts of anybody's life that I'm like, whoa, that's cool, like let's connect over that. It doesn't have to be like whatever, and exactly what you said, like there are things in place that have people pointing their fingers, and it's just silly. I think it's really silly. But yeah, hopefully I'll send you the link after we hang up, and then yeah, hopefully by the time this comes out, we'll be pretty close to having that song out and people can enjoy it. So
Sweet. Yeah, I appreciate that. And yeah, kind of on that note, and let me know what you think about this observation. But for me, I thought the lesson from most of the Disney movies when I was growing up, and was everyone's, as much as we're all the same, if there's like 100 characteristics we all kind of have, or, opinions or thoughts or emotions or kind of character traits, we're all kind of on average, but there's all these little things where we're completely different and unique. And so you can either use that as a way to find beauty and beautiful things that you love about everyone, or you can find, infinite things you disagree on or where you're different. And a lot of
yep.
times I realize that, like, I guess people say maturity, but I don't think that's the right word. But where people go, oh, well, they're wrong, or this is better than that. You're like, no, you guys just like different things. That's okay.
Sure.
They're
Yep.
into something different. And so I think it's how do you take that, kind of in a literal sense, diversity, where you've got a different distribution of all these things. How do you take that kind of almost like painting with all these intricate things, and how do you find beauty in that and show that to people rather than all of like the ways they could like, God, I don't like that person. So I guess I don't know. What do you think about that idea?
I love it. Yeah. I mean, my wife and I, we have a 10-year-old daughter and a 7-year-old boy. And that's kind of the vibes we send to people of like, they come home from school and say, so and so said this, so and so said that. And especially with like how people look or whatever, like we ingrain it of like, that's the beautiful part of life is like, we're not all the same.
Yeah.
We're not all built exactly the same, but then they're learning as their friends will come and say something pretty wild at school. And our thing is like, well, that's interesting. Like our household kind of thinks this, this is what mommy and daddy think. What do you think? That's kind of cool that they have a different perspective, and trying to create this environment of like, oh, acknowledging other mindsets, other ways of living, and like acknowledging, hey, that's kind of cool that we're different. We might not necessarily agree with it, but we can still love them. We can still be friends with those people. We can still hang out, eat a ice cream sandwich or whatever they do at school. Like that's what we're trying to ingrain because it's the end of the day, a lot of the things that people get so fired up about. The older I get, I'm just like, it's irrelevant in the grand scheme
Yeah.
of things, like the greatest connections are, loving people, kind of seeing the beauty in life. Because if you're just walking around mad all the time and just finding negativity in the world, that's very heavy, very kind of icky way to live, for
Yeah.
better lack of better terms, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's something unhealthy about that. Like, or at least that's what I've personally experienced, right? If I'm stuck in
Sure.
like negativity, I'm like, this isn't good for me.
Yeah,
It's like living off a gas station food. You're
for
like,
sure.
you're like, I need some
That's it.
vegetables.
You got it. Yeah, we just came off of a long run and I ate a lot of gas station food and my body's like not happy with me. So I'm trying to like, I'm like going to rehab, vegetable rehab.
Yeah. Man, well, yeah, that's because that's a funny thing. Thinking about, I guess. Well, let's take a little step further. What do you see like in the future for Grady Spencer and the work? Like, what are you looking forward to? What are you itching to do? What's
Yeah,
that?
that's an interesting question for us. I mean, I don't want to get too in the weeds or pull the curtain back too far, but I've had a booking agent for 8 9 years, and you know for like whatever happens, we don't have a booking agent anymore. And so now I'm doing the booking, my wife's kind of helping me do the booking. And so part of it's kind of scary in that we used to have this team behind us who was like helping us book these shows. And now it's literally just me, my wife, and the three guys in my band. And so there's something a bit unnerving about, whoa, we're out here on our own type of thing.
Yeah.
But as what we're talking about, embracing the positive side of like, hey, there's nobody else here to tell us no, so we can literally do whatever we want. And I'm really excited for the next year, because I've been playing shows for 14 years. I've been doing this a long time, and so I've met a lot of really cool people. I have a lot of email addresses. I have no doubt that I'll be able to book really great shows. And then the other side of it is we have time and space now with me and the three guys in the band to create, to hit the studio, to record a lot of video content, to just have fun and make cool stuff. And so, yeah, it's a weird time to be a musician who's playing live shows, because it's just, there's all kinds of things happening in the ecosystem of the live music world that kind of makes it hard to do, but it's also really exciting because it's kind of the Wild West. So if you want to try something, there's nobody stopping you, and you can reach out and give it a shot. And if you have people who are willing to come stand in a room and listen to you play music, then it's going to be great. And so that's kind of what we're banking on. I've been doing this long enough. We have a nice fan base built up that we just want to create really cool new music and play the shows that we want to play, and then stay home and be with our families when we're not doing that. So, yeah, we're really pumped for this next chapter.
Yeah. So Wild West, what kind of stuff? What can you give us an example of something crazy that you can do now?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, again, this is kind of soapboxy stuff, but it's like, there's the big corporate behemoths of like Ticketmaster, Live Nations, and the whole ecosystem of these artists who sell out stadiums, which is great. If I was an artist like that, I'm sure I would be loving it. But what's happening is it's kind of creating this trickle down effect of, these mid to smaller clubs are having a hard time keeping up, because people are going to these stadium shows and paying, $100, $300 a ticket. They don't have the budget anymore to go see a smaller band that's, touring through their town for $20, because they just spent $300 for a ticket. And so it's kind of an uphill battle of like trying to find your little niche as an artist, and then, surfing the cost of traveling, hotels, gas, food, whatever, and trying to compete with these stadium acts with people's pocketbooks. It's kind of daunting when you think about it. But if you do it right, and you book the right rooms, and you do the best you can do to promote your shows, your tour, or whatever, there are ways to at least break even or make a little bit of money. And that's kind of where we're at whenever we travel. Is just, can we get 75 to 100 people in a room? And if we can, then we're going to make a little bit of money. It's not a ton of money. We're not going to buy a jet off of it, but we can at least break even, and everybody has a little bit of money in their pockets. And so that's kind of what I mean. It's a weird thing. As a music fan, Ticketmaster, Live Nation makes it very convenient for me to go watch some of my favorite artists. As a musician trying to compete with those shows, sometimes it's an uphill battle. It's kind of a David and Goliath type of situation. But again, I try to stay positive, and I think there's good to be seen in it. And I always just kind of view it as a challenge of like, we're going to do our best, and that's all we can do. And the things that we can control, we're going to do our best. And the things we can't control, there's no reason to stress about it. So,
Yeah. So how do you thread that needle when you're saying you got to book the tour just right? What kind of things are you thinking about when you're figuring out what's the right, like, perfect kind of like things to do?
yeah, I think the biggest thing is knowing where your audience is. So the beauty of having, Spotify and Apple Music and even Instagram is you can see who's taking in your music. It on the back end, there's an app that it'll show you this many people in this city are listening to your music, and it's not 100% fail proof. Like, that doesn't mean that if you have 4,000 listeners in a city that you're going to sell 4,000 tickets. You're probably going to sell 40. Like, of all those people, it's just really hard to do. But that at least gets you in the right direction of knowing, okay, here's these little pockets of the people that are listening to our music. Let's start there, and let's start in very small rooms. I think a lot of artists sometimes shoot for the moon of like, they see this really cool venue with like, oh, it's a huge theater with this great light show or whatever, because they saw somebody else play there. But if you can't if you can't bring in enough people, it gets really depressing. If you have a big, huge room with 10 people in it, it's very depressing and very sad. So I always say find a cool room. Like, obviously, there are cool rooms that are like 100 to 300 capacity. And then you sell 100 tickets, it's jam packed. It feels like a cool, old school, like you said, punk rock show. Everybody's in there having a great time versus 100 people in a 1,000 person room feels like nothing. It feels empty, And so doing your research, finding the small rooms is really important because that sets you up for success. Because a lot of times the bigger rooms, they have, the deals, percentage points, all that stuff. It's very hard to make money if you're not selling it out. Like the profit margin is super hard to reach. And so, like San Diego, we played this place called the Soda Bar. That was the first place we ever played there. And it's amazing. It's a small little room, very punk rock feeling. And the first time we played it, we sold it out and it was incredible. It was like, I think it was 200, 300 people. I can't remember, but it was really, really great. And that's what I encourage artists to do is like, yes, the shiny, beautiful amphitheaters are great, but you got to start in the small rooms and build from there, build off of that.
Yeah, yeah. I've found with my band and with shows that I've gone to, it's density,
Yes.
right? So if you can sell 100 tickets, you book a 40-person room.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
So yeah. So it's got that crazy feeling. You're like, oh, this is the greatest show ever. Versus the one time we did a 300 seater and we only sold 200 tickets or 220, and
Yep.
oh, that was the
Yeah.
hardest I've ever bombed.
Dude, yeah, well it's still great, but it just feels really good and it looks awesome.
Yeah.
If to put the little sold out thing on Instagram, people don't know how much the capacity is. They're just like, "Oh, those guys sold out. That's incredible,"
Yeah, and
and
people
it's
just
just
care about selling out. It's
yeah.
like, oh, it's funny. People say you sold out. You're like, it's got double connotation, which
Yes, it
maybe there's a
does.
song there, right? You
Sure,
can we can play with
100%.
that.
Yeah. You got
Um,
that.
everyone's like, you're a sellout. You're like, yeah, I want to sell out the venue. You're like,
Exactly.
I don't book shows
Exactly.
that don't sell out because then we're losing a ton of money and no one came to
Yep.
the show. And so
Exactly.
yeah, you're like, yeah, there's so many places where you're not wanted that the trick is going to the places where you are wanted, where people do want to come see you, right?
Yep. Billion percent. Yep.
Yeah, dude, that's funny. Oh my god. Yeah, yeah. So you were saying, okay, so the demographics is a good thing, and then you played Soda Bar. We played Soda Bar. That was fun. Yeah, yeah. No, Soda Bar's a cool venue. Like, there's lots of little places like that. Oh, so this was a thing. So there's two differences between the big show. Not only is it like big and the Ticketmaster, and there's a lot of people there, and it's a big venue, but they're paying like hundreds of dollars for tickets. And so I guess what's going on in the mind of a fan there, right? Because if a fan goes, "Oh, I'm spending, I'll spend $300 to go see this act." Why, are they spending $20 to go see a local? Like for me, I don't think I've ever charged more than $20 for tickets to a show.
Right.
So I don't know. Maybe it's we're not charging enough. I don't know. What do you think that is?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's a really good question. I mean, it's a hard thing to get in the mind of people and what they're willing to spend. Because what's crazy is, we've had the chance to play these really big festivals, and we're fairly early in the day, and then we'll stick around and watch the big font at the very end because we have the artist badge, and so we can just hang out. And what's funny is that a lot of these people are paying $250, $300 a ticket. They're not even paying attention, to some of them are, like some of them are up front, but like you go to the back of the crowd and it's just like they just bought the ticket because that's what everybody else was doing. And they're not even really in it for the music. It doesn't seem like. So I don't know. It's a weird thing of like, I think the viral nature of like our lives of everybody's just trying to find this viral thing of like, ooh, 8,000 people like this. I think I should like this too. And so um, people are kind of just jumping in this like crowd mentality. But I don't know. I mean, I think there's people who actually genuinely do like the $300 ticket people. There's people who I would pay $300 to go see. I have, I took my wife to see John Mayer. It's her favorite artist, and it was incredible. It was worth every penny. Um, so I think there's a line somewhere of hype versus substance versus the demographic of people who are going to be in the arena or whatever. There's like overlap of all of it, and like the goal I think as an artist is like you want everybody's intentions to be pure. And if you're at that point, like if you're an artist selling out an arena, you've got a huge crew, you've got a lot of overhead with buses and semi trucks and all this. So it's a expensive thing to do. So you need that money. And I think a lot of people think, oh, Taylor Swift or whoever, like they're greedy, but it's they don't see the 20 buses and the 20 semi
Yeah.
trucks and the 2,000 people it takes to put on that show. It's very expensive. And so,
That's how I know you booked a tour. Well, you
yeah,
booked lots of tours. Yeah, because even me when I'm dealing with like local bands and they're like, "We're booking a tour. We're doing this." And I'm like, have you done a budget? Do you
yeah,
know how much? It's like we gotta make these numbers and not a money pit, right?
yes,
And so that's how
exactly.
you're like, dude, 20 giant semis. You're like, and now each of them, think of how many people, how much stuff there is you're setting up, how many people it
Yeah,
takes to set that up. Now catering for all them people, right? And then lodging, all of these things. There's so much money.
it's
It's so
wild.
much money.
Yeah. So that's why I say like I don't begrudge the artists or their management or whoever because it takes a lot of money. Yeah, I don't think there is a really good answer other than if the general public truly says they care about artists and like new artists, finding new artists, then I think there does need to be discussion of like, well, you need the budget for the $20 ticket because if an artist is an amazing artist, but he doesn't have anybody buying tickets, he's never going to leave his hometown. He's going to be stuck there. He's never going to grow. He might, but it's going to be a miracle if that happens. And so I have a lot of friends who tour and travel, and it's talking to them. It's an uphill battle for everybody right now. At least the people at my level and below, maybe a little bit above, but whatever. And it's a thing where if you want to see these new artists keep sprouting up, and it's not just this like what the top 40 radio station is feeding you. If you want something other than that, then you've got to go buy the $20 ticket every now and then, because that's how new people survive and that's how they grow. And then yeah, the coolest thing is for somebody to say, well, I saw so and so at the 40-person club 10 years ago and now they're selling out an arena. Like there's no cooler story as a fan than that. I've said that. I saw people in very small. I saw Jason Isbell, at a club in Lubbock, Texas, and there were maybe 20, 30 people there. And this was, 15 years ago. And now he's selling out 5,000 seat venues. It's wild. And as a fan, I'll always remember that night because it was wild. I'm looking around saying, how is this not jam packed? I think it was a 200-person room and there were maybe 20 people there. And so, it's such a cool feeling as a fan to get to see something incredible in a small room and then know for a fact that in 10 years this person's going to be selling out arenas. And so that's just what I encourage people. I mean, I'm probably yelling at the clouds with that, but that's what I encourage people, anybody who's a music fan, to do is find those artists and go watch them on a Wednesday night in a small room, because you never know who they're going to be in 10 years.
Yeah. And so, what do you think bridges that gap? Do you think, is it a mix of media? Is it a mix of charging more? Is it a mix of getting more people out to the show? Is it, because that's where it's curious is you were saying the difference between or balance, finding balances between things like hype and substance, right? Like how
Hmm.
viral something is, and then how much it's good. I think it's fair to say that you've got a lot of substance. You've got a deep catalog. You've got a good band. I mean, Streets of Gold, you re-recorded. You did a rewind. That was in February, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
I'm just saying, if you have a shallow catalog and you don't have substance, you're not re-recording songs from over a decade ago. So what do you think what do you think is that factor? Is it like getting something to go viral? Would that make a difference, or would that be a waste of time? Or what do you think?
Yeah, I think because that rant I just went on was all talking about the fan and the
Yeah.
general public, but what I would tell younger artists is you can't sit around and wait for these people to have a realization that they need to go watch your show on Wednesday. Like you've got to work extremely hard to get on people's radars, and you're exactly right. Like I think these days, for better for worse, with algorithms and the way that TikTok works, the way that Instagram works, whatever. Like as artists, we're all just kind of pulling the slot machine, hoping that something will go viral because that just speeds things along quickly. And
Yeah.
you're exactly right. If you have the live show or the catalog, or you're an engaging, authentic person, when those dollar signs hit and you have something go viral, you're set because you're ready to go. You now have the fans, you've got the songs ready, you've got the band, you've been playing, and so that's what I encourage younger bands is like everybody's trying to go viral, but you need to have songs first. You need to have played shows to 5 people. You need to have built up chops so that if and when you do pop and you go viral, you're ready. You're not just like, because I've seen bands. I mean, we've played shows with bands who were just beginning to pop, much younger artists. I'm probably old enough to be their dads. They would have something go viral on TikTok, and we would play a show and they would have 300,000 followers on TikTok. We barely had a TikTok account. Now they're like, they were ready, but they were also kind of like, well, what do we do now? They're asking everybody they can see of like, what should we do now? And they figured it out. They got good management, and now they're doing really. I think they have a tour bus, so it's like the
Oh.
most important thing. I think for young artists is like, listen, we're all trying to go viral, but you need to have the goods for if you ever hit it viral, because if you don't and it's just a paper thin thing, you're just, people's attention spans just go poof, and then they're gone. They're on to the next thing. But if you're an authentic person with real songs and you can play and continue to, as gross as it is, if you continue to push out content that like people
Hmm.
enjoy, and you have songs and you do it in a way that people connect with, you can have a career. You're going to be set for life because um, people are now following you and they're wanting to see what you have and see, they're curious of what your perspective is on things. And so, um, yeah, it's kind of rambling, but I think that is the biggest gap bridge, is like the artist has to work super hard, because algorithms and the way everything works, like you have to constantly be putting stuff out, constantly be writing songs. Um, you have to go 75% of the way, and then the crowd will meet you the other half. So. Um, yeah, I don't know if that answered the question, but that's always my thought is you have to be ready and you have to have the goods just in case you ever do pop. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's a statistic where even with like the major label artists, I think it was something like it's their 30 after 32 released songs was the average before an artist popped, like you were
yep.
saying, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
32. Think about that. That's not just I wrote 32 in my bedroom. That's I put out and I like put on a record, did a whole thing, mixed, mastered, got it good, you
Yeah.
know.
Well, even more fine tuned than that, me and my drummer are kind of
Mhm.
the like strategists. The other two guys, like they indulge us, but they more like just playing the music and whatever.
Yeah.
But me and my drummer are kind of the ones who send videos back and forth about algorithms and stuff. And they say you put out a single, it's going to take a person seeing and hearing your song 8 times. They say it takes 8 times before they go and before some people will do it
Yeah.
first time, but
Yeah.
generally speaking, Joe Blow is going to need to see visual thing and hear that song 8 times before he's willing to go, hey, I want to go to Spotify and type that in, or I want to click this link and go to
Yeah.
Spotify and listen to the song. And so it's just repetition and like being willing to like put yourself out there and say, hey, I believe in this music I'm making. I'm willing to put in the work to get on people's radars, and that's what it takes, for better or for worse. Like that's just kind of where we're at. And so yeah, that's what you got to do.
Is what you got to do. Yeah. No.
Yeah.
I well, I'll tell you with this show, the kind of idea I had is I saw what the comedians are doing, and I thought to myself, and there's no reason musicians can't be doing that too, which is they realized the industry stopped giving them sitcoms and music after CD sales stopped being a big moneymaker. The labels stopped coming after everyone as much as they would. But then comedians realized, wait a minute, we can do a podcast and it helps us, reach our people in the different cities. It helps us sell tickets when we go on tour, but also eventually you get enough views and enough people watching that you can do advertising revenue on the podcast. And so for some of them, you can get to the point where now it gives you back 40 hours a week because you can do that full time. And so now you've got an extra 40 hours to be putting into your craft and your marketing. So you not only do you get way better, you also have way more people, and you've got all these people here who are kind of like hot and ready, waiting for a new song to come out, something like that. And so my kind of thought was, let me do that for myself, but also let me get this as big as possible so that when I like Jackson Malone, I'm like, he doesn't like he's with his new he's doing his band, right? And before that he was doing more like folk stuff and now he's doing more rock. And so it's like someone like that, I can be like, come on, I've got 100,000 people who are watching. I'm like, let me bring you on, 8 times over the course of a year, you know,
Yeah.
hopefully get 100,000 people to go look at you, and then if you do a podcast, now they all can, touch base there. Because there's so many people where I would watch their podcasts that are comedians. I think their stand up isn't the best, but I like the person. And I like,
Sure. Yeah.
so that was
Do you
kind of my
care
thought
to care
here.
on the go on the record? Who's some of your favorites there?
Oh, comedians. Well,
Yeah.
not I'm not going to say ones that I don't think are funny, but
Yeah.
um, oh, who's great? Man, well Theo Vaughn, and
Yeah.
he's so big at this point.
Yeah.
That almost goes without saying. How about you?
Yeah, Theo Vaughn was awesome. He actually, this is a small humble brag, but he
Hit it.
used a couple of our songs for his intro, and
Oh,
it was incredible. Yeah, I mean it was couple of years ago, 2 3 years ago.
yeah.
So now it would be even more because I used to be able to DM him and he would answer, but now he's much too big, so I can't get a hold of him anymore. But
Oh, you can't.
yeah, no, he's great. And then yeah, there's two talk show radio guys here in Dallas Fort Worth. They were on this
Mhm.
like corporate radio station, and they ended up quitting like a year ago, and they started a podcast and have a Patreon. And it's just really inspiring to see people do exactly what you're talking about, is like
Yeah,
think outside the norm of how quote unquote how it's always been done,
yeah,
and go try, like, let's start a Patreon, let's do whatever. I think the direct to consumer thing is like really big, and we're trying to grow our email list and try to get as many people as like we're talking directly one to one,
yeah,
and not having to worry about what's happening with Instagram or TikTok or whatever.
yeah,
And that's just another tool, and it's an exciting way, and that's an encouraging way to think about how the world is right now, is like if you are good enough and you're engaging enough, like there are 100 ways you could approach reaching people, you know,
Yeah.
and it sounds like you're well on your way, and that's what we're trying to do as well. Of like think outside the box and try and connect with people and make a career out of this thing. So
Yeah, well, I feel like we're on like, Noah's Ark. We're all in that together, right? We're all
yep,
in the same boat, you know?
1,000,000,000%. Yep,
There's a lot of animals here, it's getting stinky if we don't get the
you
manure
got
out.
yeah,
But
exactly.
but yeah, no, it is, and it's interesting because that's the thing. I know I got how many? I guess no, they've got 20, but I did the math on it, and so this is the interesting thing. People don't realize is you can now upload to an hour-long video on Instagram. And
Mm-hmm.
so I can upload the whole podcast on here. And I realize this. I'm almost like 80 episodes deep now, which isn't crazy, but it's enough to say I podcast, right?
Sure. Yeah.
It's a thing I do. And what's funny is I get thousands of views on Instagram and I get like 10 on YouTube and 10 on Spotify, you
Yeah.
know?
Yep.
And I realized that basically if me and my guest co-post it, whatever followers we have together, and maybe the members of the band post it too, you're able to collaborate post, whatever our total follower count is, about half of that is guaranteed views. And then the watch time, maybe like 1 out of 10 people out of the views, then actually watch like a good like 30 minutes. Because that's the thing that shocked me first couple times I started posting on Instagram and really starting to get views and realizing like, oh, 2-3 months, I'm going to be making like 10 grand a month from the podcast. That's enough to go full time. I'm in school right now and I'm living with my parents, and I realized I'm like, wait a minute, instead of taking that money and just cashing out right then, I can put all the money back into ads on Instagram. And some of the bands I've seen, they get for every dollar they put in, they get like 2/3 of a followers. For every $3, they get 2 followers. So I realized, okay, if I'm making 10 grand off the podcast a month, and I put that back in, and that's 6,000 followers, and then 6,000 followers, and then 6,000 followers. At a certain point, once I get to like 40,000 followers, I'm guaranteed getting 20,000 views an episode, which
Yeah.
is enough to get that that kind of point. And so currently, it seems to be the guests are my biggest factor. But all this is to say is I think I don't know how many followers you have, but you might be able to, like, if you wanted to, you could do a podcast with the band. You don't even need any guests because you've got enough. And you could probably, like, if you do good numbers, you could reach out and get some brands on board. And then that's extra money to put back into ads and stuff. So I don't know. And then another thing too, as I've seen, is that if you have a video that goes viral, you run it as an ad, it does insanely well because
Yeah.
it's already something that people are going to click on that goes viral. So I'm just these are all the kind of things I'm like thinking about. I guess, have you ever considered that, or how does that idea
Yeah,
sound to you?
dude, I love it. Yeah, I've actually started a podcast, but
Oh
the
yeah,
biggest thing for me is time, and so I'm trying
yeah,
to. It is something now that we're going to be traveling less, for better or for worse. That is something on the docket of like
yeah.
re-engaging that and really getting cooking, because I think I've only done like three. I haven't done enough podcasts to say I'm a podcaster yet, like you. So
You just gotta say it. That's the thing.
yeah,
I didn't even feel good about it a month ago, but now
yeah.
I say it.
I think I only have like 3 episodes right now. So once I get to 10, then maybe
Yeah,
I'll start calling myself that. But yeah, dude, I think it's a super exciting way. And I think especially for people who just like doing creative stuff, and that's kind of what I like to do. I have a bunch of
yeah,
cameras, and just making stuff is fun for me.
yeah,
I think a lot of people get really discouraged and bogged down by making content, putting out content,
yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
And it can feel gross and like discouraging a lot of the times. But if you're enjoying making videos or you're enjoying recording something, then who cares what the numbers do? Like, I think if you care about it enough to keep doing it because you enjoy it, the numbers will eventually come.
yep,
And that's kind of where I'm at. And yeah, I was recording a video of me playing music right before we started this. I'm gonna post it after we get done. So
yeah,
it's just like yeah, finding what you enjoy doing, and even if you don't, and you don't like doing it, there are 100 people out there who are
Yeah.
trying to get started as videographers or, camera people or whatever.
Yep.
Like, just start putting it out there, start introducing yourself to people, because there are people out there who are willing to work for, not that much money. If you can
Yeah.
sling them money, great. But there's always somebody who's willing to help you out and, help you make stuff, because they're trying to do the same thing in a different world. They're trying to make it as a
Yeah.
video person or a camera person or a photographer or whatever. And so, yeah, that's always my encouragement to people. Like, if you like creating stuff, there's 100 ways you can approach this. Like, you can get as simple or as fancy as you want. And if you're authentic about it, people are going to, really connect with it. So,
Yeah, yeah. You can always find an amateur and then just say, "Hey, you want to be my producer? We'll split the
yeah,
money 50-50,
yeah,
and I'm going to
exactly.
be reinvesting it you back into it to grow it. And so if you
Yeah.
want to, you can do that, or you can just take the money.
Yep.
Um, yeah, I'm trying to get my mom set up doing that right now. I got my best friend. He's
Nice.
like applying to all these marketing jobs and doing all this stuff, and they're all basically saying like, "Yeah, we'd hire you, but we want to see that you have a social media and that you can make content, because that's what
Yeah.
you're gonna be doing all day." And so he's like,
Sure.
man, I should just start doing that. And all of his friends, because he went to school in New York, he's friends with all these people with like hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram and TikTok. First off, I'm like, do you want them to come on my podcast? That'd be great.
Yeah.
But he's like, no, 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 no. But now he's starting to warm up to the idea. He's like, man, I've been, applying to all these jobs, and no one, like, they just keep giving me the same thing.
Yeah.
Make some TikToks first, and then we'll hire you.
Sure.
And all this is to say, I'm like, hey, you should produce my mom. She's retired. You should get her on a podcast, producer. Get all your girlfriends on with all the followers. You can be behind the scenes,
Yeah.
but then you've got a portfolio to show people. There you go. And my mom gets to go talk to people instead of, because I'm living with them right now.
Nice. That's perfect.
And
Yeah.
if
That's the way to do
she's
it.
not busy, she'll find things to keep busy with, and a lot of them are with you. She'll be
Yeah.
like, "Hey, let me find something wrong with you. You got to fix." You're like, "I got stuff on my plate. I'm making videos. I'm making, woo." But yeah, what were we even talking about? I don't
I
even
don't
know. I was
know.
saying
I
something
don't
about my
know.
mom.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, just all that media stuff. Oh, you can find someone. Yeah, you can find someone, right, who wants to do all that stuff and who's looking forward to it, even if like you're not super excited. I guess it's taking that opportunity and thinking creatively about like, how do you, I guess for me, I had to define like what's my first thing. And I was kind of like, I'm like, man, I'm in school for engineering right now, and I realized, I'm like, the instant I get out, I'm going to be busting my booty in all my spare time trying to grow my music career to the point where I can do it full time and I can not be an engineer. Nothing wrong with being an engineer, but I realized, I'm like, wait a minute. If I could do either one, I would definitely be a musician full time.
Sure.
And so I was like, okay, what's the easiest way I can think of doing that, or the way that's the most reliable? And I'm like, okay, well, if I get the podcast revenue and I know I'm good on camera and I like talking to people, so it doesn't feel like work. Oh, that was the thing. Here's what I thought of. It was, you were saying, when you're making stuff, as long as you like it. And so having fun. So the trick is, for me, I only invite people on who I want to talk to.
Yeah.
I
Well,
only, I
dude, that's a big thing. I think it's
yeah,
super easy to look at, like, oh, this person just got this huge number, is going
yeah,
viral, and you try to copy what they did, or you're trying
yeah,
to talk to the person who's, you're trying to interview somebody who went viral, but you can't stand them. People are going to be
yeah,
able to see through that, um, and people can see through something that if you're trying to write a song or film a video or something, and you're trying to recreate and copy what you saw, then
yeah,
one, by the time people see it, they've already moved on to the next thing, and
yeah,
they're not even going to like it. And two, people can smell it a mile away of like, oh, you're just copying so and so, or you're just
yeah,
trying to do this or do that. And a lot of there's a lot of people in the Texas music scene. They see these people who have blown up, and I could name you 20 people who are like this person junior. It's like
Oh,
obviously they're
okay.
trying to do
Yeah,
the
yeah.
so and so
I'm doing it
thing.
this type of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and nothing against it. Like everybody's got their
Yeah.
influences, but sometimes it's like you sound just like that person. Like
Yep.
you're
Yeah.
trying
Yeah.
to
I've
be
got it.
just like
Yeah.
them.
That was a problem for me because I love Arctic Monkeys, and the first two records are like my favorite. And so my first couple songs and like half my first album is all just like Arctic Monkeys song, except it's me singing. And if I
Yep.
wanted to, I could slip into an accent, and I could just
Yeah.
do the voices like exactly like A does, and I could do the accent, and it would sound exactly, you know.
Yeah.
And so that, and then I just kind of realized I'm like, I got to do my own thing.
For
I got
sure.
to do my own thing. I'm like,
Yep.
I'll do the ascot. I'll drop tune my guitar to like C standard,
Yeah.
and I'll bring some big '80s synths, and I'll sing about fantastical things, and I'll have a mascot that's a puma who's a sophisticated British gentleman,
I love
and
it.
he's getting caught by some witches, and I'll do a Devo cover. That's what I'm working on right now, and I'll make all these fun shirts, and I'm just like, just go do. I'm like, there's other parts of me that are equally true, that are inspirations, but are more unique, and no one else is doing them. So I'm like, let me lean into the things that no one else is doing instead of just being Junior, Arctic Monkeys
Yeah.
Junior. Oh,
Everything you just said makes me want to take in all that stuff. Like I'm
yeah,
excited to check it out now because that's the kind of stuff that like people connect with. They're like, oh, this person's interesting. It's different
yeah,
than anything I've ever heard of before, and
yep.
people like that. So yeah,
Oh yeah,
that's
I just got
awesome.
off the call with my designer on this Puma, my mascot. I gotta write up the contract to be like, I paid you, I own the Puma.
There
Please
you
don't
go.
try and sue me for the
Yep.
Puma later.
Yep.
And that's the thing too is in. So let me get your thought on this, and we're gonna have to wrap it up in a second. But
Sure.
with all my like designs and all these things, like I want my music like because some people try and make money off of sync and doing all that, and that's good for them. But for me, I'm like I'm trying to get out in front of as many people as possible. It's like use my music in the background of your videos. Like do that. Like just, credit it, but just like I want this out there. Do a remix. Do a reggaeton remix. I don't listen to reggaeton, but do a reggaeton remix. Like take all my things, do an EDM version. Like and so likewise, I'm like, I want to own the copyright to like my characters, my images, and things like that. But that's just so no one tries to like stop me from using it. You know what I mean? And like
Yeah.
tries to copyright it before me because I want other people like take it, make like rip off Mickey Mouse, but like you can just use the name. Now, if it's something crazy and it's like this is my puma like killing children, I would be like, well then no. I
Yeah.
was like,
Sure.
don't do that. Make it
Yep.
rip off. But outside of that, I'm like, yeah. So what do you think on this whole like kind of like approach? Like, do you how do you approach people using your music, doing collaborations or remixes or things like that? What's your thought on that stuff?
Yeah. I'm exactly where you are. I mean, I took so I use CD Baby, but I also use DistroKid to
Yeah.
distribute my stuff, and I actually ended up taking all the YouTube protections off because
Yeah.
one, exactly what you said, I would love it if people wanted to collaborate or use my stuff, and I always anybody that's ever asked for like to use it in a wedding video or whatever,
Yep.
if it was like Coca-Cola or Chick-fil-A or something, then yeah, we
Yeah.
would maybe need
Well,
to discuss something, but
yep.
for the most part it was creating more problems for me making and putting out my own videos of like my own stuff was getting flagged for
By you.
being too close to something that's my
Yeah.
song, and when you're someone like me, I don't have a human being, and so I was just appealing to some bot
Yeah.
or whatever, and sometimes it would get fixed, sometimes it wouldn't, and I was on the verge of getting flagged for stuff for using my own music, and so my
Yeah.
solution was I'm just gonna take it off.
Well, Grady,
um
I hate to cut you
so
off here,
yeah,
but we
you're
do
good.
have to we do have to cut it.
Sure. Yeah.
Um, let's just say goodbye real quick. Bye, everyone.
Yep. Goodbye. Yeah.